All right, hello again, and welcome to the second part of our PPT. So, this is about the nature of science and technology in society. Here are our learning outcomes. So, at the end of the lesson, you will distinguish science from technology, identify the different stages of development of human society, and explain the roles of science and technology played in the different stages of development of human society. Alright, so this is the definition science vis-a-vis technology. Alright, so it says that science and technology are terms often used hand in hand and sometimes interchangeably. So let us look at some distinctions between these two seemingly interdependent terms. Alright, so here are the aims and products distinction between them. So science is concerned with discovering natural phenomena. It's the knowledge. So while technology focuses on inventing new or better tools and materials, which is the hardware, or new and better ways of doing things, which is the software. All right, so science, therefore, is preoccupied with the know and know to why, resulting in the new knowledge, especially disseminated through science papers, while technology is concerned with the know how, so resulting in a new product or process distributed for commercial consumption or appropriated through patents. So science, therefore, oh, okay. All right, so here, since science is primarily interested in the acquisition of knowledge, its activity focuses on research. So which could be pure, fundamental, basic, oriented, or applied. So each type is differentiated by the purpose of acquiring knowledge. All right, so here, on the other hand, so again, science, they use research, while technology is development, which involves transforming research in findings into prototype inventions. So it's like applying the things that you've learned of new materials, devices, and processes. Alright, technological innovation constitutes technology core activity which involves commercialization of prototype, inventions of research, and development into marketable products or processes. See science more on thinking, more on researching. If you're going to apply it, which you have your results here is in the technology, it also involves this part. So we have commercialization of prototype. All right, so you can reproduce it, right? And you can also, there's also a development in the market. All right, that's awesome. All right, so here, this provides a clear distinction between science and technology. Science and scientists deal with scientific research, while technology and technologists engage in technological development or innovation. Alright, so interrelationship of science and technology. Alright, so early development technology is highly independent of science. Let's say they are not that yet related. It was in its later evolutionary part that a weak but nevertheless symbiotic relationship with science emerged. Let's try to take a look. So here, the term applied science characterizes the current trend of modern advanced technology exemplified by microchips, transistors, robots, computers, polymers, lasers, and recombinant DNA technology. So again, if you can still remember, as I've mentioned before, science is like the core thinking, research, more on gathering information, facts. And if you're going to apply it, you can have like technology. So it's here. If you can see, applied science characterizes the current trends in modern advanced technology. But this one is higher advancement of technology. All right. So here, distinction, still distinctions in modern scientific research, on the other hand. All right, we have this. It's quite different from the applied science, has become heavily dependent on modern technological products, which include both the hardware and the software technology. So this is modern scientific research. Okay. Mm, all right, so simply stated, science produces new knowledge needed for the production of new products and better processes by the application of technology, which in turn are valuable in generating new, broader, and more comprehensive knowledge that will again be utilized for the creation of better products and improved products. So if you can see at the early, which slide was it? At the early times, technology is still highly independent of science, right? But as time goes by, as society evolve, as everything has changed, they work hand in hand. All right, so now let's move on to technological innovation and the evolution of society. So here, um, the development of technology and the revolution of societies are closely associated accordingly. Accordingly, human societies undergo revolutionary change with respect to major preoccupations. Okay, let me try to zoom in the picture on this side here. There, I hope you can see. Fantastic. All right, there. So we have the first one is the hunting society. This is the people's or the society's evolution. Hunting society, coexistence with nature, agrarian society, development of irrigation techniques, firm establishment of settlement, farming, industrial society where the usage of coal is really really high, invention of steam, locomotive, start of mass production. Yep. And we're going to tackle on that more. I'm going to show you videos later. Inventions of computers, start of distribution of information. So this is information security, where there's computers, smartphones, and the last one is the super smart. I guess this part is where we already have existing technology, but they're getting more and more advanced, like microchips, lasers, and maybe higher than that. Okay, yep, so that's it. I'll just have to make it smaller again. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, now let's move on to the next one. So society since the dawn of human civilization may be classified into five categories. So first one is the technological, oh, no, I'm sorry. First one is the hunter and gatherer societies. So these are believed to be the most primitive of all societies. So it is characterized by man's insignificant role in the natural ecosystem, as human population is small compared to the available resources. Um, hmm. So here, so technology is restricted to this major activity, which is food gathering. So they still have like very limited tools and equipment that they can use in their hunting or gathering of food. I'm going to show you a video for that. This is all. This can also show you like our history, what happened to human society, how it was evolved.
From the beginning of time, humans have had this need to survive. The earliest humans hunted and gathered their food. Now, we go to grocery stores. How do we get from point A to point B? Experts say this revolution in the way we live took place around 10,000 years ago, in the year 8000 BC. Get your pad and paper, because this is pretty important advancement in history. Historians like to divide history into nice digestible chunks of years. The Old Stone Age began around 2 million years ago and lasted till about 8000 BCE. In order to survive, the earliest humans hunted and gathered their food. The New Stone Age officially began when people learned how to farm and produce their own food. Now that they didn't have to hunt and gather their food, early humans could remain in one location and build a civilization. They chose the most fertile areas where the crops could grow. As population grew, so did their civilization, culture, and the need for interactions with other civilizations. Once people discovered they didn't need to depend on hunting and gathering, they began to live very different lives. Early farmers learned what seeds would produce the most crops. They also learned how to domesticate animals. The Neolithic Age began when they invented farming. Finally, humans had a stable food supply. Thanks to agriculture and this surplus of food, humans could stay in one place. The earliest shelters were built with the natural resources that were in the area, like mud bricks, stones, and branches. Eventually, shelters became more complex with places to store food and pits for cooking. Most importantly, houses gave people protection from harsh weather and wild animals. These permanent shelters also allowed people to form larger communities. Also, thanks to agriculture, communities grew larger and larger. The surplus of food led these larger populations to create specialization of labor. Now, community members could divide up the work and become experts in a specific area. People had more time and energy for other activities. People had free time to invent new things and make their lives easier. Also, thanks to agriculture, people had new jobs. Previously, humans spent their days hunting and gathering. Now, because food was in surplus, people specialized their work in other areas. There were weavers, basket makers, tool makers, and traders. Focusing on one job allowed people to get better at their work. This led to new and better ways of doing things. Thanks to agriculture and a specialized workforce, people began trading with other civilizations. People began venturing out of their civilizations in order to get more resources they didn't have. Traders often traveled hundreds of miles to find what they wanted. Some popular items that were traded were flint, obsidian, and various beauty products. Trade not only brought new resources to different regions, but it also helped spread ideas and knowledge around the world. We've come a long way from being hunter and gatherers. A revolution has occurred. Humans figured out how to farm and make their lives easier. They created permanent shelters, communities, new jobs, and trade. Eventually, these smaller settlements would become much larger civilizations and bring about much larger problems. Here's some references.
Alright, so that's it. And okay, hold on. Before we go to the next one, I am going to... Okay, so it goes to farming. Okay, yeah. Okay, let's have this one. So shifting and farming societies. So as human population slowly grew, and partly due to man's adventurous nature, the food supply was supplemented by produce from slash and burn farming. Um, oh no. Okay, I'm sorry. Where are we? Number 2. Oops. Okay, and where a small portion of forest was cleared by cutting and burning, and simple crops were planted until the forest reclaimed the area, compelling them to move to the next site. The availability of farm food precipitated the increase of population. All right. Okay, so before we go to the next one, I'm going to show you another video. All right, so this one.
Farming is absolutely revolutionary. When we discovered how to farm, we suddenly increased the ability of the land to support us.
It's the difference between there being only a few million humans on the planet and there being billions of humans on the planet. Most humans alive today subsist on the products of the agricultural revolution, the byproducts of farming.
Humans were extremely good at hunting. One of the problems is about 8,000 to 10,000 years ago, most of the large animals that humans were hunting died out. We were simply very successful. In those locations where you no longer had game, you had a choice between dying, moving, or settling down and trying to survive and thrive on plant life.
Our ancestors were natural historians in their daily lives, and this was probably behind the domestication of plants. They probably noticed that if they took some of the seeds and rather than eating them, left them on the ground or put them in the compost heaps or the dumps near their camp, they grew.
Farming arises in many different places, totally unconnected with each other. And that is the beginning of civilization.
We had to come up with better tools, better ways to build our houses, to protect our land, to make our clothing and so forth. We had new materials to use, we had new plants to grow, and we started to develop organized societies.
You have to have a hierarchical system that's going to have somebody in charge to make sure that things are done.
Farmers are invested in land. Inevitably, if there's more than one person farming, this brings them into conflict with one another.
When we moved from hunting and gathering, we stopped being predators and started becoming prey to a great extent.
Warfare kind of follows farming as a natural sequence.
You have stuff to lose. You have a vested interest. And we needed to create other things to protect that.
Farming is the most important ingredient in human civilization.
It is the seed from which everything grows. From the first crop to the notion of property, nation states, cities, empires. It is the roots, quite literally, of all society.
Alright, and that is very, very beautiful. How farming is very important in our society. The evolution of our society. Okay, so now let's have the next picture. So the third yep, part or stage of our evolution is the agricultural and mining society. So growth in human population resulted in the depletion of natural resources and available food supply, because of course we're getting manier and manier. So that's the thing. So such environmental restriction led to the domestication of plants and animals for their survival. So that's a time that stable agriculture and animal herding, as well as the development of societies, came into existence. Let's see if I've also shown in the video. Alright. So since they could not plant the whole year round, more workers and better tools were required, which led to an increasing use of technology. And with better agricultural technology, food supply became abundant, freeing some members of the society from the task of food production. So some started the pursuit of knowledge and eventually discovered alternative material sources for the benefit of mankind, which is this. So the manufacturing and the processing society. So the discovery of coal was among the first products of man's search for knowledge. So the use of coal marked the start of industrialization. So the Industrial Revolution was fueled by coal and eventually by oil and gas. Alright, so yep, before we go to that, I guess I have some video here about Industrial Revolution, I guess. Yep, I do have. Gonna show it to you.
Industrial Revolution, 18th to 19th century.
Okay, I'm gonna change that to another player. Alright.
Industrial Revolution, 18th to 19th century. The economic developments of the 1800s saw the development of agrarian and handicraft economies in Europe and America transform into industrial urbanized ones. The term to describe this phenomenon would be known as the Industrial Revolution, and was first used by French writers but made popular by English economic historian Arnaud Toynbee. The Industrial Revolution was underpinned by the Agricultural Revolution. From the mid-18th century to the mid-19th century, agricultural production increased significantly. The huge increase in food output supported the expansion and sustained a large population and boosted trade. The increased use of machines over human or animal power in farming also meant that less farm workers were needed, and they could leave the land to industrial towns. Better metals and richer fuel also contributed to industrialization by creating the steam engine, an integral machine to industrialization which powered factories, locomotives, and ships. The new steam engines used coal and iron, both in their construction and as fuel, increasing demand for these resources. Roads, canals, and railways changed Britain dramatically, connecting Britain and allowing goods to be sent over long distances. Visually, the revolution was clear in the new industrial towns, with smoking factories dominating the skyline. The cities were horrible to live in, overcrowded and dirty with dangerous conditions in the factories and strict rules and punishments. The Industrial Revolution saw mechanization in factories of the textile industry, which was previously manufactured in the home, creating the term cottage industry. Now, production could be increased on a large scale because of new inventions such as the spinning mule and the power loom. The iron industry developed with Henry Bessemer's inexpensive process for mass-producing steel. Iron and steel were key materials for constructing the tools and machinery, steam engines, and ships needed for the industrial progress. Industrial labor opportunities drew people to the cities from the countryside, to such an extent that in 1750 only 15% of the population of Britain lived in towns. By 1850, over 50% of the entire population of Great Britain lived in either a town or a city, and by 1900 it was 85%. London had 4.5 million people, Glasgow 760,000, Liverpool 685,000, and Manchester and Birmingham 500,000. Great Britain was the birthplace of the Industrial Revolution and was the only mature industrial economy for a long time. Historians have speculated that this was because, as an island, there was relative peace and stability for Britain compared to mainland Europe. Rather than spending on a large defensive standing army, capital could be spent on other ventures, and there was confidence for investors. Native resources were also abundant and readily available for initial technological developments and inventions. Engineers and inventors were also respected and encouraged in British society and were backed by wealthy patrons. A powerful navy and an empire bringing in vast wealth from its colonies also contributed to the catalyst for industrialization before others. Nevertheless, Germany, France, Switzerland, Belgium, and the United States soon emulated Britain's industrial change, and by 1900, Britain would no longer be at the top, with the United States as the world's leading industrial nation in the 20th century.
Subscribe for more history video.
All right, there you go. So that's it. All right, so here, let's have the next one. So technology played an increasingly important task. So human labor was gradually replaced by machines. Mechanization in agriculture allowed people to move into manufacturing and processing society. So yeah, there's another evolution. So the last one here is we have synthesizing and recycling societies. So the steady and alarming increase in population made parallel demand on the fast depleting non-renewable resources of the earth. So this is now what we are facing. So before, I guess, where after the farming, lots of people also know about, or was it know more about mining and all those stuffs. But I guess or nowadays, it's kind of impossible. If you can see the news, we our people are more concerned now of mining, of cutting down trees because yeah, because the world is also, or the people are also getting more and more. So this is actually alarming. Um, because we are getting more, or we're using more of the world's energy, natural resources, and we are just getting more and more users, or yeah, using the resources that we have, which is, if you can still remember in our first part of the PPT, these resources are is limited, is limited. All right, so well, so the survival of the human population necessitates increasing support from technology. And here, stabilizing the human population. That is why if you've heard, and I know everyone's aware, um, the last time China, I remember they have like one child policy. Also, we do have like reproductive, what do you call it? Like health, where people or where women and men can have control to reproduce, right? Also, production of synthetic food. If you've seen Na's video of a synthetic shrimp, which is also as shown in the video, was safe. It is safe, all right, and other synthetic food. That's why well, if more people can have or can participate in these areas, it's really helpful for the future. And other resources, so recycling of non-renewable resources are just some of the areas technology will need to be concerned about. So that is why more electronic bikes, bicycles, electronic cars, instead of using gasoline, right? So that's it. It's one nowadays, this stage of development of era of people of society, we should be more aware of what's happening around us. It's not just we are just going to use and use of of the limited natural resources that we have. Even at home, we can actually do our part, like turning off the lights if we go out from the room if we don't use it. Um, Conserve water, very important. Um, what else? Even just making our home clean. That's already one part that we can do, one help that we can do in our world. All right, so that's all for our second part of our PPT. Thank you for listening.